The Book of Leviticus chapter 15.
Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron and said, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when a man has a discharge from his body, that discharge is unclean. While the discharge continues, the nature of his uncleanness is as follows: whether his body allows the discharge to flow, or whether it retains it, he is unclean. Any bed the man lies on, anything he sits on, will be unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. Anyone who sits where the man has sat must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. Anyone who touches the body of the man with the discharge must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. If the man with the discharge spits on someone who is clean, that person must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. Any saddle the man has ridden on will be unclean. All those who touch any object that has been under him will be unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up such an object must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. All those whom the man with the discharge touches without having washed his hands must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. The earthenware vessel he touches must be broken, and any wooden utensil must be rinsed. Once the man with his discharge is cured, he will allow 7 days for his purification. He will wash his clothes and wash his body in running water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day, he will take 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons and come before Yahweh at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and give them to the priest. The priest will offer one of them as a sacrifice for sin, and the other as a burnt offering. And in this way, the priest will perform the rite of expiation for him before Yahweh for his discharge. When a man has a seminal discharge, he must wash his whole body with water, and will be unclean until evening. Any clothing or leather touched by the seminal discharge must be washed and will be unclean until evening. When a woman has had intercourse with a man, both of them must wash and will be unclean until evening. Whenever a woman has a discharge, and the discharge from her body is of blood, she will remain in a state of menstrual pollution for 7 days. Anyone who touches her will be unclean until evening. Anything she lies on in this polluted state will be unclean. Anything she sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches her bed must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. Anyone who touches anything she has sat on must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. If there is anything on the bed or where she is sitting, anyone who touches it will be unclean until evening. If a man goes so far as to sleep with her, he will contract her menstrual pollution and will be unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. If a woman has a prolonged discharge of blood outside the period, and if the period is prolonged during the time this discharge lasts, she will be in the state of uncleanness as during her monthly periods. Any bed she lies on during the time this discharge lasts will be polluted in the same way as the bed she lies on during her monthly period. Anything she sits on will be unclean as during her monthly periods. Anyone who touches it will be unclean and must wash clothing and body, and will be unclean until evening. Once she is cured of her discharge, she will allow 7 days to go by. After that, she will be clean. On the 8th day, she will take 2 turtles and 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of the meeting. The priest will offer one of them as a sacrifice for sin, and the other as a burnt offering. And in this way, the priest will perform the rite of expiation for her before Yahweh for the discharge which made her unclean. Hence, you will warn the Israelites against contracting a state of uncleanness rather than incurring death by defiling my dwelling, which is among them. Such is the law governing a man with a discharge, or who is made unclean by seminal discharge. A woman in a state of pollution due to menstruation, a man or a woman with a discharge, or a man who sleeps with a woman when she is unclean.
Keep us safe and clean, O Lord, from whatever will contaminate us and take us away from your presence, so that having been made pure, we may come to offer you the worthy sacrifice of praise by the gifts of our lives. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.